tones that indicated the non-importance of what they were saying, while they waited for the real business of the hour. Then the butler removed the plates, pausing beside Gordon, waiting punctiliously with his silver tray to brush away the crumbs. This was just what Gordon waited for. It had come to him as the only way. Courteously he drew aside, lifting the paper from the table and putting it in his lap for just the instant while the butler did his work. But in that instant the paper with the red cross was slipped under the napkin, and the other paper took its place upon the table, back down, so that its lack of a red cross could not be noted. So far, so good. But how long could this be kept up? And the paper under the napkin, how was it to be got into his pocket? His hands were like ice now, and his brain seemed to be at boiling heat as he sat back and realized that the deed was done and could not be undone. If any one should pick up that paper from the table and discover the lack of the red mark, it would be all up with him. He looked up for an instant to meet the gaze of the 6 men upon him. They had nothing better to do now than to look at him until the next course arrived. He realized that not one of them would have mercy upon him if they knew what he had done. Not one, unless it might be the tired, old-looking one, and he would not dare interfere. Still Gordon was enabled to smile and to say some pleasant nothings to his hostess when she passed him the salted almonds. His hand lay carelessly guarding the secret of the paper on the table, innocently, as though it just happened that he laid it on the paper. Sitting thus, with the real paper in his lap under his large damask napkin, the false paper under his hand on the table, where he from time to time perused it, and his eyeglasses, which made him look most distinguished, still on his nose, he heard the distant telephone bell ring. He remembered the words of his chief and sat rigid. From his position he could see the tall clock in the hall, and its gilded hands pointed to 10 minutes before 7. It was about the time his chief had said he would be called on the telephone. What should he do with the 2 papers? He had but an instant to think, until the well-trained butler returned and announced that someone wished to speak with Mr. Burnham on the telephone. His resolve was taken. He would have to leave the substitute paper on the table. To carry it away with him might arouse suspicion, and moreover, he could not easily manage both without being noticed. The real paper must be put safely away at all hazards, and he must take the chance that the absence of the red mark would remain unnoticed until his return. Deliberately he laid a heavy silver spoon across one edge of the paper on the table, and an ice cream fork across the other, as if to hold it in place until his return. Then, rising with apologies, he gathered his napkin, paper and all, in his hand, holding it against his coat most naturally, as if he had forgotten that he had it, and made his way into the front hall, where in an alcove was the telephone. As he passed the hat rack he swept his coat and hat off with his free hand and bore them with him, devoutly hoping that he was not being watched from the dining room. Could he possibly get from the telephone out the front door without being seen? Hastily he hid the cipher message in an inner pocket. The napkin he dropped on the little telephone table, and taking up the receiver he spoke. "Hello? Yes. Oh, good evening. You don't say so. How did that happen?" He made his voice purposely clear, that it might be heard in the dining room if anyone was listening. Then, glancing in that direction, he saw to his horror his host lean over and lift the cipher paper he had left on the table and hand it to the guest on his right. The messenger at the other end had given his sentence agreed upon, and he had replied according to the sentences laid down by the chief in his instructions. The other end had said good-bye and hung up, but Gordon's voice spoke, cool and clear in the little alcove, despite his excitement. "All right. Certainly I can take time to write it down. Wait until I get my pencil. Now, I'm ready. Have you it there? I'll wait a minute until you get it." His heart beat wildly. The blood surged through his ears like rushing waters. Would they look for the little red mark? The soft clink of spoons and dishes and the murmur of conversation was still going on, but there was no doubt but that it was a matter of a few seconds before his theft would be discovered. He must make an instant dash for liberty while he yet could. Cautiously, stealthily, like a shadow from the alcove, one eye on the dining room, he stole to the door and turned the knob. Yet even as he did so he saw his recent host rise excitedly from his seat and fairly snatch the paper from the man who held it. His last glimpse of the room where he had but 3 minutes before been enjoying the hospitality of the house was a vision of the entire company starting up and pointing to himself even as he slid from sight. There was no longer need for silence. He had been discovered and must fight for his life. He shut the door quickly, his nerves so tense that it seemed as if something must break soon, opened and slammed the outer door, and was out in the great whirling city under the flare of electric lamps, with only the chance of a second of time before his pursuers would be upon him. He came down the steps with the air of one who could scarcely take time to touch his feet to the ground, but must fly. Chapter 3